So Bob, we want to get your advice on some top tips for summer, for looking after your pets. I would imagine when the heat eventually arrives, the sunshine eventually arrives, pets in cars is a big problem, isn't it?
Yes, always is, unfortunately, and every year there are cases where the police or the RSPCA have to actually break into people's cars. And the idea being to rescue the pets that are effectively cooking inside. And the temperatures inside a car, left, even with the windows open, with a crack in the windows, it's incredibly hot inside there.
So there's a misconception that if you leave the window open, you're going to be all right with your pet.
It won't be all right. I promise you, it won't be all right. We actually tried this as an experiment and sat in a car with the window open, a crack, and you really do not want to be in there. Very, very quickly, you're creating your own little sauna. And one of the problems our pets have is that they don't lose body temperature by sweating. They actually need to pant. And when they're panting, they're losing some moisture there, and that evaporates, but if the area inside the car gets very humid, it can't evaporate, so they stay even hotter and hotter and hotter. So they die.
Don't leave your animals in cars.
Don't leave your animal in the car. Absolutely, it's just simple. And even if it's only going to be for a couple of minutes, make arrangements to either take the pet out with you or leave someone in the car, so the door can be left open and get plenty of ventilation through.
Now, cats, white cats, how do they need protecting through the summer?
Well, it's white-tiered cats. Cats' ears are very, very thin at the top of the pinna, as we call it, and effectively they get sunburned, but they get sunburned from both sides. So if you imagine if we get any sun, but if you imagine a double dose of sunburn, that can cause a lot of problems. And what eventually happens is that the skin on the outside edge of the ear flap then converts and becomes a squamous cell carcinoma, so it becomes a tumour. And we then end up having to operate to remove bits of the ear flap or even taking the whole of the ear away. So a simple trick that can be used for white-eared cats especially is to actually use a bit of sunblock, some factor 50 or factor 999, which is what I try and use, using a bit of high dose sun factor suntan cream on those ear flaps when cats are going out. Because cats love sitting in the sun. They love it. They sit on the windowsill, sat in the sun, but of course during that time their ears are cooking, so we need to try and protect them.
Rabbits, we've mentioned about fly strike before on your show on Stray FM as well. How can we avoid fly strike in bullies?
Hygiene, feeding. Those are the two key messages. If we feed our rabbits on what I term the hay diet, which is basically they eat hay or grass with occasional treats of pelleted food, not the muesli mix, I hate the muesli mix, but the pelleted feed, good quality pelleted feed, but regard that as being a treat as opposed to the staple diet. So by using a good quality food with high volumes of roughage, then it keeps the guts flowing and it keeps the pellets normal so we don't get any diarrhea or soiling. And if we avoid the soiling around the rear end, it makes it an unattractive place as far as flies are concerned, and therefore they don't lay their eggs. But we need to check our bunnies, because they can suffer from diarrhea, they can end up getting soiled, and a soiled bunny is just a mecca as far as flies are concerned, and they'll just get in there and say, great, this is a great place to have our fly babies. And they leave the maggots, and the maggots then feed. And it's horrible.
Awful.
Absolutely horrible.
Heat stroke across all animals, I'm guessing it can affect them all. How can we avoid it generally?
Generally, well, dogs, I guess, are probably the high candidates for this, and it's being aware that they find it difficult to lose body temperature, and so by exercising very, very first thing in the morning before the heat of the day gets in there, or late in the evening when it's nice and cool. But plenty of access to water. Not doing long runs that we would perhaps think of doing in the other parts of the year. Plenty of access to water, giving them a chance to cool down. Should your pet suffer from heat stroke, then the tips to use are to try and cool them down, hose them down with water, so cover the fur, so the fur then is wet and it then evaporates and cools them down. But also pouring water on the dog's head, because actually it then keeps the brain cool or tries to cool the brain down and avoid some of the problems. But then obviously contact us or your veterinary surgeon and hopefully take advice from them as well.